Sorry, I forgot to mention, Yonatan has 7 minutes to tell his story. At about 6 minutes, Yonatan's going to hear a short bell. When he hears it, that means you have to wrap up your story. Sound good?
I'll try my best.
All right, do your best.
Thank you for having this event, and I hope you guys all like my story. So when I was 15, I got expelled from high school. I was a freshman in high school, and I got kicked out right before the end of the first semester. My parents didn't really know what to do, so they sent me to a reform school in Dahlonega, Georgia. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Dahlonega, Georgia, but I would... look at that, we have somebody. So I would assume that you haven't, because it's a tiny little town right off of the Appalachian Trail that's about, I'd say, 15 miles away from anything else, and its one claim to fame is that sometime they had a gold rush, so there's a gold museum. So while I'm at this reform school, it's pretty tough. It's run by Army Rangers, and their goal was to break our spirits and to get us into shape and, reform us. So that involved a lot of chopping wood, a lot of hikes, a lot of digging holes, and then filling the holes up again. And it was a very hard life for a 15-year-old. I was there for about 19 months altogether. And one of the tactics that the 150 kids that were in this program had was we would train ourselves to lucid dream. Now, I don't know if you know what lucid dreaming is, but that's where you get to a point in your dream where you wake up, so to speak, in the dream. You become aware that you're dreaming, and you have a lot of power in a situation like this. Now, to be a 15 or 16-year-old kid and be in a situation such as I was, dreaming became the highlight of my life. I would actually count the hours and minutes every day until we'd be released from the Army Rangers and put back into our barracks so that we could fall asleep. Now, we actually had a book we had an underground library because there was a lot of, censorship as to what we were allowed to read, not allowed to read. And so this book would go from student to student, or from, kid to kid, and we would learn to have this skill of lucid dreaming. Now, I dreamt about freedom when I was there. I dreamt about living where I'd be able to wake up and make decisions as to what I was going to do every day. Because this prison that we were in was overbearing, that without this kind of escape, I didn't have really anything to live for. So now I want to fast forward to the actual story. That was just the preface. I came to Israel in 2004, 2005, where I met my lovely wife, and soon after we had the birth of our first child, we decided to go on a trip to America. Okay? So we fly in to visit my parents who live now in Florida. So we get to America, and we have to take a connecting flight through Georgia, through the Atlanta airport. Now, I have a lot of baggage with this airport because of my time that I spent in Georgia as a teenager. So here we are, we've got a newborn child and my lovely wife, and I don't know if you've ever been to the Georgia airport, but it's enormous. So we're at a point where we are about 2 stories below where all the terminals are, where there's like a shuttle that will take you where you need to go. And we're there with the stroller, and we get to this huge escalator that goes up 2 stories. It must have been 150 steps on this escalator, however you measure the length of escalators. So by the escalators, we can't take the agala up the escalator. So we wait at the elevator for our turn, and it's this tiny little elevator. You'd expect at airports they would have something that's big, but whatever. This is just enough for my wife and the stroller to fit into it. So as the doors, so we realize we can't all get into it. So I leave the 2 of them to go in, and I turn to the left and I get on the escalator and I say I'm going to meet you at the top. So I go up the escalator. It's a pretty slow escalator. It takes about maybe 40 seconds to get up to the top. And then I turn around and I walk to the top of the elevator. The elevator doors open, and a young couple gets out. And I ask them, "Did you see my wife and child?" And they look at me and they go, "No, we never saw your wife and child. We don't know what you're talking about." So I get in the elevator, I push the down button, I go back down to the floor where I left my wife and child. They're not there. I look around, there's nobody really there to talk to, and I'm trying to make sense of what just happened. I saw them get in. I got up the escalator. It's been maybe about a minute and a half. Now I think to myself, this is a little weird. you know what? I'm going to find out. They must have gone somewhere. I check my pockets, and my pockets are empty. That's also kind of weird. I don't have a plane ticket. I don't have a passport. I have nothing on me. Also, I haven't slept in about 30 hours. Okay? So I do the next logical thing is I go over to, one of the telephones, one of the, the help that's there, and I page my wife. And I say, go to a phone, call me back. I wait maybe about 5-10 minutes. I know we're running late for our connection flight, but what else am I supposed to do? No call back. So I make the announcement again. I can hear it over there. They're blasting it through the whole airport. Sarah Karras, please, call this number. Your husband is looking for you. So I think and I go, you know what? I remember the terminal gate that we're supposed to go to. So I get into the shuttle, and I go over to the gate. I eventually make it to the gate, and it's completely empty. There's not anyone there. So now, at this point, I get very nervous because I start questioning whether or not this is really happening. I start questioning am I really married? Do I really have a kid? And I start thinking, and I go, one of the ways that you know that you're sleeping is that you can't remember how you got to where you are. So now I'm thinking there's this hazy memory behind me as to how did I get to this airport? And at this point, I break down, and I'm convinced that this didn't happen, that my engagement, that my wedding, that finding out that my wife is pregnant, that holding my child in the first time is all just a figment of my imagination. And I break down just weeping at the airport, and I go over and I pick up the phone, and I tell the operator that's there, I want to wake up, just let me wake up. And he has no idea what I'm talking about. So after I start flipping out, and somebody comes over, because now I'm making a little bit of a scene, I explain in the choked up tears as to what's going on, and she makes a little phone call on her walkie-talkie. Apparently they or whatever the airline we were using, Delta, changed the gate, and apparently didn't tell us. So eventually they escort me over to where the real gate is, and I see there's nobody there, and then they tell me, the plane is almost going off. And I see, they let me into the terminal, because I explained to them I don't have a ticket, and they see that I'm a little, crazy at this point. And then they let me just through into whatever that thing is that lets you walk onto the plane, and there's my wonderful wife and a beautiful daughter. And at this point is when I realize, my dreams came true. All of those dreams that I had when I was a 15-year-old boy trying to escape from this prison that I was in came true, and I'm now living them. And what I thought was just a dream is really my waking life. So that's my story.
Thank you so much. It's not easy to be the first storyteller of the night.
See who's gonna break this one.